Gentlemen, you are late for parade.
Hello, Colonel Whoopit.
Hello, Mr. Dong. I should say Private Dong. Private Ho Dong.
I didn't want to be different. I wanted to be the same as everyone else.
Yeah.
I was a banana. Yellow on the outside, white on the inside.
So you, Mr. Dong, married Miss Ding?
Yes, we made doorbells.
I can remember standing in the mirror in front of, with my cousin in front of the mirror, and we'd be playing this game, and we'd be saying, I'd be saying, you're Chinese, and he'd be saying, no, you're Chinese, and you're Chinese.
At that time, China was going through the Cultural Revolution, and everything that was coming out of China, you know, the information, the pictures, was always really ugly, or it was very false.
I mean, I knew my sister looked Chinese and my brother looked Chinese, and it didn't really occur to me actually that I was Chinese. Somehow it's like, you watch those TV programs and they sort of scramble the face because they're criminals or something like that. Well, I'd look in the mirror and I think I'd see this scramble.
The only Chinese we knew were the restaurant people. The owners paid my mother $2 an hour to wash their dishes. Back then, I associated being Chinese with money grubbing, cheap decor, and sweet and sour pork. I spent my teenage and early adult years in denial. I had no Chinese friends. I refused to eat at Chinese restaurants. My Caucasian friends said they never thought of me as an Asian. I took this as a compliment. I realised I was attracted to men when I was 14 years old. Every month, I'd buy Clio from the local newsagent for my sister. My heart would be pounding as I opened the centrefold.
One afternoon, when I was in high school, I read an afternoon paper, and there was an article about homosexuality. And I can remember when I first saw that word, it was like an incredible shock of recognition to me, and it rather hit me like a thunderbolt that this was me.
I knew I was different from my peers, and part of that was a bit confusing because I wasn't sure if I was different because I was Chinese or not. And I used to wonder if my cousin used to have the same feelings. I thought, well, if he did, that's because we're Chinese, not because, I'm gay.
Oh my God, how am I going to tell Mum and Dad? Well, I'll become so busy that no one will be able to ask any questions. And then when the question of my sexuality came up, it would be like, well, he can't have a girlfriend because he's too busy. He's studying, or he's doing sports, or he's doing the debating team. He's too busy.
From my research, I knew there was a world out there waiting to be discovered.
You go through this really oppressive childhood, and then you come out and there's this amazing subculture where you can express your sexuality. And not only that, it's a very aesthetic world, and people are very alive in this world. They may not be very happy, but they are very alive.
There were parties at Sydney University and parties at the Paddington Town Hall, and there was a sort of naivety about that scene. People hadn't learned to be sluttish yet, and so that they could, it was just, there was a sense of discovery and freshness and excitement. And I remember at one party, some of the boys had taken their shirts off, and I thought that was the most exciting thing that I'd ever seen.
I didn't know anything about what saunas were like. I suppose I guessed it was probably a sex venue of some sort. I went into the sauna. It took me, I don't know, about half an hour to an hour to realise that there was more than just the coffee area. Eventually found it, went downstairs, and I think I walked around like a real dork, asking people, oh, what's behind that door, and what's in there, what's in the darkness.
In this exciting new world, I had to come face to face with a harsh reality. No matter how white I was on the inside, my skin was still yellow. What I didn't understand back then was what this meant.
You see, there's a sexual hierarchy in the gay scene, you know, and you know, white, blonde, middle-class men are right there at the top. And you know, at the bottom, sort of, or close to the bottom, I guess Asian men at the time was quite close to the bottom, I would say.
I noticed that there was a lot of sort of sexual tension in the whole bar, like everyone's cruising and everything else. And you sort of notice that people look through you, you know, for some reason. You're not part of that game. You know, you're excluded from most of the games that they play.
At first you think, oh yeah, you know, maybe I'm not cool enough, or maybe I don't have good enough friends, or you know, I'm not interesting enough, or whatever, which all still may be the case. But I mean, you quickly realise that it is racially based.
Hi, my name is David. I'm 36 years old, 5'10", 74 kilos, looking for other guys around my own age.
Hi David, my name's Tony.
G'day, Tony. Now tell me about yourself.
Well, I'm 36 years old, 5'11", black hair, brown eyes, 71 kilos.
Cut or uncut?
Uncut.
Great, I'm into foreskins. Body hair?
Smooth all over.
Sounds hot. You shave?
No, just naturally hairless. I'm Chinese. Is that a problem?
The mainstream gay society says this is what's beautiful. Therefore, you can imagine people who are just coming to the gay scene, who are just growing up gay, who are just realizing that they are gay. They think, oh, what if I'm not like that? Therefore, I'm ugly. If that's beautiful, then what am I?
It's not that, yeah, one day you go into the bar and they said, okay, you know, all blacks and Asians that go over there. You know, it'd be easy if it was like that because you could fight against it. But the fact of the matter is that it's this slow, insidious process.
A lot of people have decided that they're not interested in you because you're Asian. That's something that was actually quite a painful lesson to learn, like from a long time ago.
There's always this thought that maybe it's just me, you know, it's not because of race or anything, it's just me because I'm obviously undesirable, so you know, there's nothing I do about it.
You don't know whether, you know, maybe they haven't taken the interest because, you know, they don't like you, they don't, you know, they're not interested in you as a person, or they're not interested in Asians, you know, it's, you'll never know. They don't know.
Eventually I realised that when most Caucasian men in the gay scene look at Asian men, they don't see a tall or short man, an attractive or unattractive man. They don't see a Chinese, a Filipino, a Cambodian. They see a category which absolutely defines us, yet describes nothing. The Asian.
Gay men are always going to be seduced by sexual imagery, and so far the range of sexual imagery that's been shown has been very limited.
Even in Malaysia, I mean, I remember flicking through you know, things like JC Penney catalogs, all these blonde American men in their swimwear and things like that.
In terms of gay erotica, it's very difficult to find images of Asian men because they are perceived as not as sexually aggressive and because they're perceived as having small dicks.
In gay culture, the object of desire is the masculine man. Sexual fantasies revolve around figures of male power and authority. Asian men, however, are only represented in specialist magazines, and it's exotica, not masculinity, which is worshipped.
We've got smooth velvet skin. We look so young, and it's a bonus if you speak English.
They are the perfect boyfriend because they don't answer back. They cook you wonderful, fragrant Chinese meals. They do shiatsu on you, and they'll do anything you want.
The same racial stereotype of passivity and compliance, which makes the Asian woman desirable in the West, makes the Asian man marginal. But there's a world where being Asian is highly prized.
How I met. Eat your pizza.
My first couple of lovers were older white men. And I started to get the thing in my head like, oh my God, am I going to be relegated to a life of older white men? I mean, not that there's anything wrong with older white men, but I just thought it sort of accorded with that stereotype that only Asian men are only attractive to the so-called rice queen.
When I was first coming out, I was very much aware of the term that was used in a sort of derogatory manner that people would call rice queens. There was this sort of subtext that if someone's a rice queen, it's like they're settling for second best. If they're unable to obtain Caucasian men, then they'll settle for Asian men.
I'm not saying it's wrong with an older man, but some of the Caucasian men do treat the younger Asian boys like a toy boy.
I went to a party and it was, full of middle-aged Caucasian men and little Asian boys, basically. And one middle-aged Caucasian man tried to kiss me in the kitchen because he thought he had the right to, I guess. I was so insulted by that it was actually because of that I avoided rice queens for many, many years. But I think I've overreacted, probably.
In the Philippines, if you're gay, your relationship or your boyfriend will treat you as a woman. So you have to act as a woman.
Currently I'm involved with a guy who's like twice my age, and things we talk about are just much deeper than, say, stuff you talk about if you're having a relationship with, a young guy.
The older you are, they say, the wiser you are. It's just like wine. The older it is, the better it tastes, I suppose.
I call them Aussies. Aussies accept me as a gay when I first came over here. And I don't act like, I'm not straight acting.
Asians who have relationships with older men, they're seen with malice by other gay men as being, a leech.
Sometimes it holds me back, If I want to make a relationship with someone who is a lot older than me, it holds me back because of this stereotype of gay Asian men.
They just made their conclusion in 1 minute. Oh, here we go. He's off, and that's it. And they're not thinking. But for us, like living it every day, we have a lot of different interests. Like like he's into computer, and I'm into art, and ice cream, and he's quiet.
Plenty of contrast.
Yeah. We give a shit about what other people say, what other people think, Those other people, they're probably like self-proclaimed guardians of morality, and they just come up with all these, shit about, what's correct, what's not correct.
We're not correct in the first place.
What.
potato queen is an Asian man who is primarily attracted to Caucasian men. I'm a potato queen.
I am also attracted to blonde, middle-class white men, I guess, or something like that. And for a long time, I think I felt really guilty about it. Because, I mean, it's kind of like you're betraying yourself.
It's not like I said that I didn't like Asian men, but you would use certain criteria that excluded most Asian men. You use, size and height and all these things which you can use and justify to yourself that's all okay because it's only because of these things that you don't like Asian men. I think it's really only an excuse sometimes.
What we really need is sort of camaraderie, yet in fact what actually happens, the way the dynamic's often set up, I'm not talking about all situations, but many situations that, you do feel that, Asian men are competing against one another, for white men who are interested in Asians.
I felt that it was very competitive, and in fact sometimes if I go to the sauna and there are too many Asians there, I think, oh, there's too much competition, I'll go home.
Sometimes I feel like I'm an invisible observer, watching a world I can never really belong to. And in part, it's my own desire which puts me in this position. It's the longing to be inside which makes you an outsider.
It's part of a broader issue of desexualisation, which I think is rooted in the tenets of the White Australia policy because of, Australia's location in the, Asia-Pacific area. There was a paranoia about overpopulation of Asians. One effect of the White Australia policy was basically, to also desexualise Chinese men so they wouldn't procreate, and more specifically they wouldn't procreate with white women. Because a lot of the Chinese people were deported or they weren't allowed to bring their wives, and they more or less found it impossible to meet partners. For example, my father's family, out of the 10 siblings, only my father was able to find an appropriate wife. So you can imagine the level of personal despair that this would have had on people. I think that lives on in the psyche. It's not just transmitted generationally, but it's transmitted through the broader institutions of society.
There have been more Asian men who've been going out with other Asian men, which is fantastic because I think that's symbolically a very powerful affirmation of your own self-worth and self-love.
I found when I tried to sleep with an Asian man, I felt, oh God, I missed out. What did I miss out here? It's this great feeling. I felt the passion, I felt the love, I felt attraction to them, and I just adore their skin.
You're with someone who's very like you physically, and it's though that they know your body better than a Caucasian.
In 1995, I went to China for the first time to work on a television project. I was looking for my roots, a sense of my Chineseness. Unfortunately though, most people on the mainland mistook me for a Japanese tourist. But one significant thing happened. I met a man called Robert and we spent the night together. I'd never slept with a Chinese man before, but it was as familiar as touching myself. Chinese skin, hard and smooth and polished. Perhaps for the first time, I felt desire which had nothing to do with race. He didn't want me because I was Chinese. I did not want him because he was Chinese. We were simply attracted to each other. It was the most liberating experience of my life.
I think it's hard for a gay man because the world is very much put up in terms of body image, and you can spend your whole time chasing a dream. I think that that's what happens to people, that they chase a dream and they're never ever satisfied.
Certainly being at the bottom of the sexual hierarchy, I suppose I've had to develop intellectually and with my personality too, because those things then had to matter. I suppose, started going to the gym seriously about 5 or 6 years ago, and I think it's all tied in with low self-esteem, wanting to be bigger and wanting to be the ideal body in terms of what we think an ideal body should be. If I feel that I'm not good at something or I'm unattractive, I guess it's sort of not such a disaster. It's not the end of the world. I was aware that it's sort of a cop-out, I think, dealing with self-esteem using the gym, but I sort of figured it's probably cheaper than trying to work through it or have psychotherapy for years and years and years.
I will buy pictures. I will buy magazines from Hong Kong or from China or from Singapore which have Asian models in it, because I don't want to see constantly, I don't want to be bombarded always with white images.
With experience, you become to accept people more, and you realise that there isn't a Mr. Right, and it takes a long time. It maybe takes what could take a whole lifetime for you to accept people.
I suppose I'm at a point now in my 30s where I feel more relaxed about who I am, more confident, I think I've got good self-esteem now. But it took me a while to get there.
We make a lot about being Asian and where we don't have that much choice or we're not attractive to the rest of society. But actually, most people aren't. And being Asian is just coming from a position where you might be old or you might be fat and you're equally rejected.
We live in a culture which accords power and status according to the way we look. Being Asian is only one category which puts you in the margins. In reality, very few of us can live up to the ideal. We're all outsiders, foreigners, struggling to be a part of someone else's dream. In the past few years, I've noticed a change in the gay scene. The rigid boundaries of the sexual hierarchy are blurring. Desire isn't polarised between the rice queen and the potato queen anymore. There's a new generation of young men out there, confident and defiantly visible. When I see these guys dancing and laughing and fitting in, I feel a pang of jealousy. I wonder, is it really as easy for them as it looks? We came to this country to be a part of a dream, not realising that the dream only knew itself by excluding us. In recent years, things have changed for me as well. I don't dream about being blonde-haired and blue-eyed anymore. In the end, it doesn't really matter if one person wants you and another person doesn't. It's taken me half a lifetime to realise that.